just had a call. I was checking my list. Darian Fenton.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr Chair. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you for the compliment, Mr Quinn. Now, keep it up, won't you, all the way through my speech, if you will. Mr Chair, I'm pleased to take a call in the first part one of this bill, and I want to talk about also the priorities, as my colleague just did, the priorities that this budget has demonstrated. I think one of the saddest things that we saw yesterday, and as time goes on and we start to examine the budget in more detail, is that this government thinks it's more of a priority to spend $70 million on building a prison than it is for early childhood education. Early childhood education, $400 million gone out of that. Early childhood education, which gets our children off to the best possible start, that invests in our future, Now, when I look at the other priorities too, this is a tax cut. This is a tax swindle where the richest are getting most of the money. And I want to talk about Paul Reynolds. He may be feeling a little bit picked on, but he is the $7 million man. He's the CEO of Telecom. What's he done as the CEO of Telecom? Well, during his tenure, he sacked 1,200 Kiwi workers. 1,200 Kiwi workers. That's what he's contributed to the New Zealand economy. And what's more, they didn't get redundancy, may I just add that. But National thinks they need to keep Paul Reynolds in New Zealand with this huge tax bribe using other ordinary working Kiwis' money. So they've given him another $290,000 a year. $290,000 a year of hard-working Kiwis' money. And that's coming from higher GST, higher rent bills and the hard work of ordinary New Zealanders. Now, if Paul Reynolds wasn't getting this tax cut, Mr Chair, we could hire 6 more nurses or 6 more teachers with that money. We could pay for 400 hours of early childhood education. Or 400 workers wouldn't be having to pay for the added GST bill. When I compare that to what someone on minimum wage will be getting, I just think it's a disgrace. It's so unfair to have $290,000 a week in a tax cut going to one of the richest people in New Zealand, and then you look at someone on minimum wage on $26,000 who's going to end up with $4.82 a week. And that's before ACC levies. No, it's after GST, but it's before ACC levies, petrol going up, and inflation, 5.9% inflation, and childcare, of course. So they're going to end up worse off. In fact, they're already worse off with the lowest pay increases in a decade that we've seen. One of the things in the budget that I spotted in the budget document yesterday was on page 69, a miserable little sentence. The tax credits for redundancies will be removed. The tax credits for redundancies will be removed. Now, what are the tax credits for redundancy? These are people who get compensation when they lose their job through no fault of their own, and they get paid a lump sum payment which pushes them into a higher tax bracket. Labor fixed that by making sure that couldn't happen, that they could apply for a tax rebate and not pay extra tax on their compensation. So not only is this government kicking low-paid workers, but it's also kicking those workers in the guts who lose their job through no fault of their own, not by kicking them while they're down, not only not with supporting them getting redundancy compensation, but for the few that do, making them pay more tax. Now, I think that's incredibly unfair. The other thing about this budget is the education cuts. There are huge cuts to education throughout this budget. And of course, as my colleagues have said, there is nothing in here about skills development. Where are the skills going to come from if this economy recovers, as the government says it will? Where are the jobs going to come from? Where's the job creation packages? And one other little miserable cut, Mr Chair, that I've noticed is in the Department of Labour, where they've cut the employment-related contestable fund, the education fund for workers actually and for employers. They've cut that. That's their opportunity to learn how they can make a contribution in the workplace to growing productivity, to productive employment relationships and to helping grow our economy. But I think the problem is with this government is that they don't think people that do the work actually are part of the economy. They don't think they're part of the economy. They only think that big business is part of the economy. Actually, the economy is people doing work, and that's where the changes have to happen, in the workplace, with productive employment relationships.
I call Sir Roger Douglas.